I have been obsessed with the G1M Ultra that took place this last weekend. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically what you call a backyard ultra, which means you run 4.2 miles every hour on the hour. So if you, let's say, ran 4.2 miles in 45 minutes, you have a 15-minute rest, and then you have to go back the next hour. And if you don't complete 4.2 miles within 1 hour, then you DNF. You did not finish. And this race lasts, this is the interesting part, this race lasts until there's only one man standing. It's a last man standing race. That means there is no finish line, there is no idea of when the race will end. It's basically until there's only one person left in the entire loop. And I have been obsessed with this race this last weekend because this last weekend the BPN G1M Backyard Ultra took place, and for the first time I was exposed to a race like this. So I went back and I watched the surrender film that was made by BPN Media about last year's G1M Ultra, G1M Backyard Ultra. I also watched Kim Gotwell's documentary on the race, right? I was going through all these resources and all these things about the race, and it changed my perspective on life. That I want to share in this video. That's how I did so. And I feel like this is going to be critical when it comes to helping me, by the grace of God, by the grace of Allah, achieve whatever I want to achieve in the future, inshallah. Because I feel like this change in mindset is something that is extremely, extremely important for anyone looking to achieve whatever goal they want to achieve in life, inshallah. I have a couple bullet points here. Peep my handwriting. I'm going to use this, so yeah. It's not about reaching the finish line. It's not about reaching a desired outcome. It's about pushing yourself and seeing who you can become in the process of achieving whatever goal that you have. And that leads me to the concept of obsessing over the process, not necessarily the outcome. And the outcome being whatever outcome that you want. Whether that's a good physique, whether that's a good job, whether that's a better relationship with God, whatever it may be. Achieving that goal is about obsessing over the process of getting to that goal instead of obsessing over the actual goal itself. Let me explain. I'll take myself as an example. I don't have a good physique right now. I look like this, right? I don't have a good physique right now. And I want to get to something like this, inshallah, in the future. And so sometimes I'm in this state where I feel like absolute poop, honestly. I feel terrible. I feel like trash. Because I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I'm nowhere near my goal. I mean, I see all these other guys in university, in public, that are jacked, that are, just basically walking around with freaking amazing physiques. And I'm like, I wish I was there. I want to get there fast. Right? I just want to teleport to that point. But then I ask myself this question. I feel like you should too as well, if you're in the state. Will you stop eating clean? Will you stop pushing yourself in the gym or with calisthenics? Once you achieve this physique, once you achieve whatever strength number that you want, whatever performance metric that you want in your fitness, will you stop training hard, eating right, sleeping enough, recovering, pushing yourself? Will you stop doing that? I was like, no, I love this too much, no. Then I was like, that means there is no finish line. That means there is no point where, oh yeah, I reached the physique, then I've achieved my outcome. No, there is no finish line. If by default I will never stop the input, then that means there is no finish line. Because the input is never going to stop, you see what I mean? And so if I won't stop once I've achieved the outcome, then that means there is nothing left except the process. You see what I mean? Because there is no finish line, right? It's not like I get to this physique and then, oh okay, I give up lifting. No, I'll still keep going. And that means I wasn't in love with the outcome, I'm actually in love with the process. I'm actually in love with the things like lifting, training hard, sleeping enough, eating right. I'm actually in love with these things, not the outcome. So does the outcome really even matter? No, it doesn't. So what's the point of obsessing over the outcome? And instead, let me obsess over the process. And if I do that, I'll actually end up getting better results than the person who's just obsessed over the outcome, because his inputs change based on if he sees any physical change in his body. But for me, I can do the same damn thing for 10 years because I'm like, I love this, right? I love this. And so if I can do this for 10 years, I am more likely to get that result as opposed to that person who is just obsessed over the outcome. I know this sounds abstract, so let me put this in the exact situation of a backyard ultra. In a backyard ultra, you don't know when's the finish line. You don't know when you're going to be the last person standing. If you are going to be the last person standing, you don't know that, right? What is the only thing that you can enjoy, that you can focus on? The process, aka every single lap. Every single lap. You have to fall in love with that game, right? Even though it sucks, it's difficult, it's hard. You have to fall in love with that game for you to continue. Because if you hate it so much, then eventually you're going to tap out. But if you just fall in love with the lap, right? If you just fall in love with running 4.2 miles every hour in the hour, then there will come a point where you are going to be that last person standing. So when I started thinking like this, I was like, the only thing that's really left is the process. The only thing that's really left is pushing myself. And that is the thing I love. Once I reach a specific outcome, I know I'm going to be like, oh yeah, well, I've gotten there, well, whatever. If I know that is going to be my reaction when I get to that specific outcome, then that means the outcome did not matter in the first place. What mattered was enjoying the process. Because that is what I look back upon. I mean, like, man, those nights I was in the gym training alone. Man, those times where I had to eat 3,000 calories in one meal because it was Ramadan. Like, you see what I mean? If those are the things I look back upon, And if those are the things I'll obsess over, and if those are the things that I enjoyed in the first place, then what's the point of stressing over the outcome? Let me just enjoy the process, and I'll get there faster. It's like this concept. Anything great comes off of the back of pushing yourself in that specific realm for a long amount of time. If you want a 2:30 marathon, right? A sub 2:30 marathon, then you need to be in this game for a long time. You need to push yourself for quite some time to get that sub 2:30 marathon. And so you need to push yourself a lot. You need to stay consistent. You need to dial in your strength training, recovery, running, everything, right? So think about this. If you just get obsessed with running, if you just get obsessed with strength training, if you just get obsessed with nutrition, and you do that for a long amount of time, eventually you are going to get that sub 2:30 marathon. So if that is the case, then was there really a point in you stressing out about, oh, I'm not a sub 2:30 yet, I'm not a sub 2:30 yet? No, it wasn't. So I thought to myself, I'm like, if I can just get obsessed with pushing myself, if I can just get obsessed with the gym, if I can just get obsessed with training, then I've won. I've won. Because I'll do this regardless of getting an outcome or not. And if that is my motivation behind training, then getting that physique is inevitable, God willing. That is the biggest mindset shift I've had from watching the BP Enduro and Ultra. And I hope that I was able to articulate that in a way where it maybe clicked or made sense for you. The other thing my perspective changed on in life was competition. Comparison, right? Obviously, as humans, we compare ourselves a ton. I compare myself a ton. It can be something that can benefit you, but it can also be something that can harm you. And so I was thinking about this in the concept of a backyard ultra. When I was watching the G1M Ultra, I was watching, I think, Kim Godwell's documentary on this, and he was talking about how Troy Haynes was there, Chad Wright was there, right? All these amazing runners were there, right? All these amazing runners were there, right? And so obviously, Kim having no reputation, but like, so I was watching Kim Godwell's documentary on, the G1M Ultra that took place last year, and he was talking about how, he went there and Troy Haynes was there, Chad Wright was there, all these amazing runners were there, right? And so obviously he's like, man, they're like, past me, right? But the interesting thing is, even though they might be better than Kim initially, right? Kim outlasted them. And ended up as, a winner of the G1M Ultra. So think about this. It's not about if someone is doing better than you as of now, if someone's ahead of you right now. It's about will they still be in the game 10 years from now, inshallah. If God gives both of you life for the next 10 years, will they still be in the game 10 years from now? That is the question you need to ask yourself. Because if they are not in the game 10 years from now, then that means that you've won. Because if you were to think about their graph, right, it might be going like this, and then because they quit, it stops and it stagnates, right? And your graph might be actually below theirs, right? But because you keep going, eventually it outpasses them. It surpasses them, sorry. Just like in a G1M Ultra. You may see someone absolutely crushing it, right? Completing that loop in 40 minutes, right? Every hour on the hour, 40 minutes for like 5 laps, right? And you think, damn, bro, this guy's killing it. He's getting so much rest. He's getting 20 minutes of rest every single hour. I'm coming in at 50 minutes. I'm not getting that rest, man. But then the question is, 10 laps later, are they still going to be there? 20 laps later, are they still going to be there? 30 laps later, are they still going to be there? That is the question. And so when you start thinking like that, you come out of that short-term comparison mindset, right? Where you're like, man, this guy has a better marathon time than me, or this guy has, better physique than me, yada, yada, yada. And then you start to think, how can I set myself up long-term? How can I set myself up to be winning 10 years from now, inshallah? 10 years from now, God willing. That is such a massive lesson for someone like me who compares himself a lot. The last perspective that has really helped me is that life is all about pushing yourself. And this ties in with my first point, but life is all about pushing yourself. It's all about constantly trying to get better and better and better and better and better, right? That's all what life's about. Because you're either growing or you're either dying. You either keep getting better or you die. Because time keeps going on, right? So if you're not improving constantly, then basically you're dying, right? But besides that, like I mentioned in my first point, the beauty of life is in pushing yourself. The beauty of life is in seeing what you can do, how far you can go. How can you use the blessings that God has given you to benefit humans, to benefit society, to benefit, His deen. To benefit Allah's deen, me being Muslim, obviously I think like that. And that too by His grace. It's important to recognize that there will be seasons of pushing yourself. Sometimes you can push yourself more, right, with minimal rest. Sometimes you're gonna have to take some extra rest, but you still keep pushing yourself. However, in both cases, you are moving forward. Because think about this, right? In a backyard ultra, You might come in initially at, let's say, 45 minutes, right? And so you have 15 minutes of rest. You're pushing yourself in a more balanced way, where for 45 minutes you're pushing yourself, and then you get 15 minutes of rest. And those 15 minutes are for you to, again, push yourself for the next 45 minutes, right? But there are going to be seasons where you won't get as much rest, and it's going to be go, go, go. Like, for example, you might come in at 59 minutes. 59 minutes. That actually happened in last year's G1M Ultra, where Kim, he slept during the loop, right? And so he came in at like 57, 58 minutes, I'm not sure, but he came in very, very late. So he had to go back out again, right? You only get 1 minute of rest, right? 1 or 2 minutes of rest. You get to recalibrate, and then you head back into the war zone. But then after that point, there still comes a time where you might finish the lap in 50 minutes, and then you get 10 minutes of rest. There are seasons, right? Sometimes you have to push yourself a lot, sometimes you have to push yourself a little bit, right? And you're resting more. But that rest is also for you to go out again and push yourself. So the common denominator in both is to push yourself. And that is the beauty of life. You get to constantly push yourself and see how much you can accomplish by God's will, by His permission, by His help. That is what makes life fun. That is what makes life flavorful. That is what makes life enjoyable. Because I'll be honest, in those moments where I haven't done much, I've stayed in my comfort zone, those are the moments those are the times I hate myself the most. Those are the times when life is not enjoyable. But for example, last year when I was in a marathon prep and I was really pushing myself, I was really, dialing in my training, trying to dial in my sleep, although that wasn't the best, but trying to dial in my recovery, trying to basically shoot for us up to a half marathon, right? My first time. I look back at that period of my life as one of the best periods of my life. Those 2.5 months were amazing because I had this one goal and I was pushing myself for it, right? And I was obsessed with the process, not necessarily the outcome, because I didn't really achieve the outcome. I completed that half marathon in almost 2 hours and 2 minutes, but I still enjoyed it so much because when I was at the start line, I was only saying one thing to myself. I want to cross the finish line and be able to say to myself, I gave it my all. I pushed myself to the absolute max. And that I feel like is one of the things that makes life worth living. That is honestly how the G1M Ultra changed my perspective on life. Obsessing over the outcome, focusing long term, not short term, and being obsessed with pushing myself. I wish I get to do these in the future, inshallah, like at least once in my life, a backyard ultra. That'd be so sick. But yeah, that's what I learned, alhamdulillah, and it's just about implementing this knowledge now. So if there's any takeaways that you had from the G1M Ultra, if you watched that, then be sure to comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that being said, I'll catch you in the next video, inshallah. Peace.